Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're going to be checking out Mr. Fantastic in Act 6. We're going to be doing a full lane clear in 6-1, going up against basically Thanos' army and Guillotine and Dormammu, and also going to be taking on the final boss. Now I'm not going to be doing a perfect kind of like a run through. I will make some mistakes here and there, but I did want to showcase exactly how brutal Mr. Fantastic can be when synergized up, when kind of played somewhat correctly. And man, he's a great amount of fun. First thing you're gonna notice that because of Fantastic Force energy, he does constantly do damage over time, and that damage over time varies based on how many debuffs are an opponent. More debuffs, more damage, because the higher his attack is, and it all just works out well. So as we can see here, that Guillotine was ticking before for like 500 a tick. Now she's ticking for 400 a tick. Once you drop our level 1 for quite a while, now it's 700 a tick, and that damage adds up because it's present throughout the entire fight, starting from the first second in the fight. And yeah, so 45 hits in, that Guillotine's nearly down. Also, we additionally have the Science Synergy, which places power stings on opponents whenever they throw special attacks, and basically the Guillotine just goes bye-bye. So even though he definitely is not the hardest hitting champion, but when used in this kind of manner, his damage actually is quite up there. There might not be any huge numbers, but all the damage over time, plus the fact that you can spam more special attacks than most champions in a game because he has massively increased power gain, and the fact that you can be aggressive because opponents gain less power, it all adds up, and these fights seemingly go quite effortless. Now we are going to be starting up the next fight against Proxima Midnight. So in this fight we do not have class advantage anymore. However, we have access to our third debuff, third pre-fight ability, so it means immediately off the gate we are doing more damage than we did in Guillotine's fight. And the point is, we're just gonna be kind of like trying to finish off these fights as quickly as we can. We're not gonna be necessarily going for multiples of level 2s or that Fury from level 3. We're just gonna be playing Mr. Fantastic as we're trying to get the quest done as quickly as we can, and he does it fairly well. In this fight I do drop another level 2 that places that shock on Proxima, which is a quite substantial shock. Plus, obviously, it's a nice added bonus for Mr. Fantastic's Fantastic Force energy. And at this point, 34 hits in the fight, that Proxima is nearly down, so she's melting away. Absolutely. Additionally, the fact that we are doing damage over time, plus there is heal block, and plus all the other stuff, power stings, basically means that we are absolutely ignoring that life cycle node. And life cycle has been fairly popular, kind of pain people's bottoms in this month's uncollected quest, just because that Silver Surfer has it as well. But part of the reason why I am making these videos is because I think Mr. Fantastic is slowly starting to fall off the radar. You don't see too much gameplay of him on YouTube and don't hear too many people talking about him. And at the same time, he's one of those champions who I think has a lot of still undiscovered potential, why through his synergies, why through his own abilities, or what he does for Fantastic Four. I think he will end up being ever-present kind of face in endgame content with what he can do, and I kind of hope that more people investigate what he can do, check him out with different champions, different combinations in different quests, have a feel for it. I definitely would absolutely hate to see this guy kind of like drift into obscurity and get completely forgotten about, and therefore I am making this video, and I'm just gonna showcase how he does in Act 6. And in this case I was pleasantly surprised, man. He was taking on all of these opponents like they're absolute cupcakes, and yeah, the fight seems that he is pretty much dominating most of them, plus all of those debuffs. It's kind of easy to forget that all of those debuffs also do something, and all of that adds up to some massive combination of effects on opponents. They are heal blocked, they're staggered, they're taunted, therefore their attack is reduced. His study debuffs reduce the attack of their special attacks. You get all of those evades, and all that in itself, when you study each individual thing, might not seem as impressive, but when you look at the total kind of damage, total dump on opponents' options, on abilities, the way you do your own damage, it adds up to like this massive kind of like huge pack of effects that will be viable in many different scenarios. Like those staggers are really effective, heal block is always nice, access to different damage over time effects, and even those the fact that he can bypass stuff like life cycle, where damage over time effects aren't supposed to be able to take place, because he damages opponents over time with his own ability. That gets around that. And yeah, I am definitely kind of excited for the guy. I do want to play more with him. I do want to see what he can do and what he can't do and where he can be used. I also want to check him out when he is just there by himself without any synergy partners, because in endgame scenarios you often cannot bring in like a full team dedicated to one champion, so on and so forth. So he's definitely an interesting character. He's a character that I find intriguing just for the simple fact that I can't see everything where he could be valuable, because there are just so many options. The synergies, the pre-fight abilities, him supercharging Void, so on and so forth. So even though he's not the flashiest champion like Chorus or Ghost or Omega that deals like this insane amount of damage insanely quickly with huge yellow crit numbers like Sunspot or whoever, his damage is still up there to begin with. Second of all, it offers so much kind of side effects and side capabilities that I'm definitely really happy that I did max out this guy. I do not regret it one bit, and I'm just kind of eager to find out everything this guy can do. And realistically, I don't think it's possible, because he is a complex champion with many different varied abilities, and like here we can just casually curb stomp Cull Obsidian, bypass life cycle, and move on to the next fight. Now this fight he did something silly that I do more often than I'd like to admit, and that is I simply forgot to activate all the pre-fight abilities, and that obviously does damp his damage output quite a bit and his versatility as well. So yeah, this fight is sped up. I didn't want to cut it out, but that is a problem. I do quite consistently forget to activate these pre-fight abilities when I mean to, especially if I'm kind of trying to complete a quest and not overly focus on each individual fight. And yeah, so here Ebony Maw should have been a walk in the park for Mr. Fantastic, because he's fairly fragile and flimsy, and all those debuffs make Mr. Fantastic a really great option against Ebony Maw. But now we're going to have to struggle through this fight a bit more, and it's going to be a bit more of a slugfest. We're still going to get it done, even without those pre-fight abilities active, with that limited amount of debuffs which we can apply to this Ebony Maw. He's still going to go down. Now, struggling a bit at the end of the life cycle, because I don't have high attack, I don't have as much damage over time, so I actually have to kind of time it better, I suppose. And we will get it done in just a second, and then we're going to move on to the next fight. The next fight is going to be that serious big bad guy Dormammu before the final boss, and then we're also going to have some boss action. Now, obviously I have made some mistakes throughout this path, so I'm not all that healthy, but still the goal is to finish it out without using any health potions, so we're gonna have to try and play as careful as we can. And for instance, even like in simple scenarios against Dormammu, the fact that he's gonna be gaining less power and we are gonna be gaining more does help Mr. Fantastic a lot, because you have less special ones to bait. You don't have to worry about pushing Dormammu at level 2 too much. Plus your level 1 attack has taunt on it, so it means he's going to be much more willing to throw that special one. And this is exactly what I'm kind of talking about. All of those little things add up and make for a really kind of nice, smooth, easy fight experience if you know what you're doing. Therefore, I definitely do enjoy the kind of complicity of the character. Now there I did make a mistake. I activated my level 2, which gave me a Fury buff, which did obviously eventually expire, and that triggered Dormammu's ability. So we did take quite a bit of degen, but that was like an oversight of me. I shouldn't have simply thrown that level 2, and I would have avoided having that Fury buff. But that being said, it was still extremely easy fight, just 48 hits and down went the Dormammu. We were never like in particularly big danger of messing up or, I don't know, pushing him past 2 bars of power. And now we have just the final boss fight left. And this boss fight is going to be an extremely pleasant time for Mr. Fantastic because of the petrified debuffs. So he will be able to kind of negate the power gain this guy is going to be having. Also, you do not really have any inherent buffs yourself outside of Fury, which you gain with your level 2. So you don't have to worry about stuff being nullified and you taking that extra amount of damage. And it will be quite an pleasant, easy time of you just being super aggressive with Mr. Fantastic. And yeah. I also want to take my time to ask you guys whether you have Mr. Fantastic. What do you think about him? What kind of special uses have you found for him that you found at least a bit quirky, interesting? It doesn't have to be like the most impressive thing in the world, but the base idea is how you use your Mr. Fantastic. What have you figured out that he can kind of like add to your game, whether it is with his pre-fight abilities or his synergies or just using him flat out in a fight by himself. But here in this particular example, we can see that we do have 2 copies of each debuff already. I will make a mistake here. I should have knocked him down before I activated my level 2 because that let 2 of my previous sets of debuffs expire and we lost 2 petrified debuffs basically. But nonetheless, it's still kind of good enough to close out the fight. We still have those 17% health. We have hardly taken any damage in this fight. And everything's going our way pretty much. We don't have too much to worry about. We are still mitigating his power gain. We are still being super aggressive. We're going to drop another level 2, which is going to pretty much close to finish out the fight. At this point, we just need to make sure we can get around life cycle node, and that shouldn't be too hard either. But that will do for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit all the buttons, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya.